You're watching CGTN.
Coming to you from Washington, D.C.
You're watching CGTN.
Coming to you from my room.
I'm members of business of
Mark, what can you tell us about events happening there?
politics.
This is a pretty picture. Timing of the event.
Second time back over to Beijing.
To go after them.
All about the
This is CGTN. CGTN. See the difference. This is CGTN.
You're watching CGTN. I'm Jeff Moody, live in Beijing.
You're watching CGTN.
Coming to you from Washington, D.C.
You're watching CGTN.
Coming to you from my room.
I'm members of business of
Mark, what can you tell us about events happening there?
politics.
This is a pretty picture. Timing of the event.
Second time back over to Beijing.
To go after them.
All about the
This is CGTN. CGTN. See the difference. This is CGTN.
You're watching CGTN. I'm Jeff Moody, live in Beijing.
You're watching CGTN.
Coming to you from Washington, D.C.
You're watching CGTN.
Coming to you from my room.
I'm members of business of
Mark, what can you tell us about events happening there?
politics.
This is a pretty picture. Timing of the event.
Second time back over to Beijing.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, you're kindly reminded that our launching ceremony is going to begin very soon. Please take your seats, and thank you very much. 女士们、先生们，我们的仪式马上开始，请大家回到座位，非常感谢。
This is CGTN.
You're watching CGTN. I'm Jeff Moody, live in Beijing.
You're watching CGTN.
Coming to you from Washington, D.C.
You're watching CGTN.
Coming to you from my room.
And members of business office.
Mark, what can you tell us about events happening there?
The politics
This is a pretty picture. Timing of the event.
Second time
back over to Beijing.
To go after
It's all about the dance. Look at what we have.
This is CGTN. CGTN. See the difference.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the launching ceremony of Dialogue of Civilizations. I'm Li Qiuyan from CGTN. On behalf of the network, I'd like to first of all extend my warmest welcome to all of you for being with us here today. And for those of you who are watching us online, thank you for joining us. It's always a great pleasure to have you with us. Now, some of you probably have noticed that this room is quite different. It's built in traditional Chinese style. Well, this is actually a perfect setting to kick things off for our special program because ancient architecture holds a very special place in Chinese culture. Now, before we get down to business, I want to introduce our distinguished guests attending this event. They are Mr. Jiang Heping, Deputy Director of the New Center of CCTV, Controller of CGTN. Welcome. And His Excellency Leonidas Rakinas, Greek Ambassador to China. Welcome, Ambassador. His Excellency Gautam Babawali, Indian Ambassador to China. Welcome. Her Excellency Nagla Naguib, Charge d'Affaires of the Embassy of Egypt to China. Welcome. And Counselor Hussein Abraham, Cultural Counselor at Egyptian Cultural and Education Relations Office here in China. Welcome. Thank you all for coming. Now, Dialogue with Civilizations is a special program that's launched by CGTN's flagship talk show, Dialogue with Yang Rui. And we have invited anchors and guests from 4 different civilizations, Egypt, Greece, India, and China, to join the TV debate to talk about the value of ancient civilizations and see how is that still relevant today. And before we move on to our panel discussions, let's first welcome Mr. Jiang Heping, Deputy Director of New Center at CCTV, Controller of CGTN, to deliver the opening remarks. Please.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. First, on behalf of CGTN, the forum's co-founder and organizer, I extend my warm welcome to all of you. Your active participation has made this event possible. Bringing together representatives from the world's oldest civilizations, the forum will serve as a platform to discuss the rise and fall of the world's civilizations, the future of cultural diversity, the inspirations that the modern world can draw from the past, and how we can rejuvenate our time-honored legacies in this new era. We've created this forum with a belief that history will witness the far-reaching and enduring significance of this endeavor. As the ancient Chinese saying goes, although Zhou was a nation-state, it had a reform mission. China, Greece, Egypt, and India are all known for their erstwhile splendor and glory. Rising from the towering mountains and extending beyond the mighty streams, ancient civilizations have made important contributions to the progress and development of the human community. Down through the ages, we've all enjoyed the riches and prosperity and suffered the savages of war and aggression, which plagued us and obscured the brilliance of our civilization time and again. A survey of today's world reveals a new round of development, transformation, and adjustment in the global politics, economy, and technology since the beginning of the century. The deepening of the economic and social integration among the world's nations has come to meet the obstacles of trade protectionism and unilateralism. Against such a backdrop, it is time for us to seek the roots of our issues. To resolve the conflicts and settle the differences, we need mutual appreciation and harmony, which calls for a dialogue of civilizations. We need a dialogue of civilizations in order to explore more rational approaches for world peace and development. The mirror of history offers insights into the rise and fall of nations. The thousands of years of experiences accumulated by the ancient civilizations is a treasure trove of wisdom for all humanity. This invaluable fountainhead of experiences holds the solutions for the issues besetting today's world. We need a dialogue of civilizations in order to inject new momentum for the rejuvenations of our countries. The prosperity of a country and a nation is built on the bedrock of its civilization. Today, we are all confronted with the arduous mission of promoting development and attaining rejuvenation. Therefore, we are obliged to distill the essence of our best cultural traditions to serve as our driving force for the governance of our countries. We need a dialogue of civilizations in order to blaze a new trail ahead for human civilization. The evolution of human community has always been a record of multilateral coexistence and co-prosperity. Over the millennia, the ancient civilizations in Egypt, Mesopotamia, Greece and Rome, Indus River Valley, China, and Maya have shone like a galaxy of stars, all contributing to the common prosperity of humanity. In this new century, they will continue to drive human civilization towards the right direction. Today's world has banished the clash of civilizations to usher in dialogue and communication. Both the past and the present have shown that the good communications among civilizations are usually the times when conflicts and wars are under effective control. In the Chinese civilization, the essential values of mutual appreciation and harmony stress kindness, love, and good neighborliness. However, at the same time, we also recognize the importance of tolerance and inclusiveness. As a country with a well-preserved and uninterrupted history, we feel it more deeply how the common development of many different civilizations forms the foundation of a diverse community. All civilizations are equal, and they should be equally respected and appreciated. While handing down our own civilizations, we should also safeguard and promote the diversity of fellow civilizations, which represent the common historical and cultural legacy of all humanity. As the world needs diversity in its development, CGTN has adopted an international perspective of openness and inclusiveness and strove to discover, report, and appreciate the difference. See the difference is our mission statement. Rather than challenge the dominance of anyone in particular, we are here to add a new voice, a voice from China, from Asia, from developing countries. Launched on the 31st of December in 2016, China Global Television Network offers content in English, Spanish, French, Arabic, and Russian on a full range of platforms. Among its media convergence of operations are 6 TV networks, 6 TV channels, 3 overseas production centers, a video news agency, a new media division, and the CGTN Corporation. Our TV signals reach more than 170 countries and regions across the globe. Our presence on major social media platforms boasts a combined following of up to 140 million. CGTN English's Facebook account commands a faithful followers of 70 million, second to none among the world's news organizations. In its integrated distribution, CGTN adheres to the principles of concentrating on television while prioritizing the mobile internet, and makes a point of thinking globally, locally, digitally, commercially, and innovatively. We encourage going global and two-way exchanges. Among our cooperations with the world's media organizations, the program Dialogue has been a successful pioneer. So far, we have co-produced content with the Sky News of Australia, ARD of Germany, ERT of Greece, Ariran TV of South Korea, and New Delhi TV of India. This forum represents CGTN's latest endeavor in international exchanges, bringing together leading broadcasters from the world's oldest civilizations. We hope to explore the future of multilateral civilizations and a multipolar world through our on-screen discussions. With hosts and presenters from Greece, India, Egypt, and China, we hope the discussions will shed new light on the rise and fall of civilization, alert us to the dangers of the clash between civilizations, and examine the world politics and international relations from a fresh perspective. Such gathering of outstanding personalities is meant for a free exchange of ideas rather than an exercise in lecturing and indoctrination. On this open and inclusive platform, scholars from all nations can share their views and opinions about themselves, their community, and subjects ranging from humanity, history, spirit, and tradition. We hope the forum will become the opening movement of a new symphony for dialogue of civilizations. We firmly believe that this will be a celebration of human history and its rational thinking regarding the future course of human progress will represent a significant step toward cross-cultural understanding and multilateral civilization. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much for Mr. Zhang for that thought-provoking speech. You know, multiculturalism, co-civilization, those are some of the keywords we're very interested in discussing today. All the ancient civilizations have contributed in some way to the modern development of this society, but we're more keen to know how we can guide things forward. What's going to happen next? Is the world becoming more separated or integrated? Right? We're going to talk more about that later in our panel discussion. But in the meantime, please join me to welcome Ambassador Gautam Babawali, Indian Ambassador to China, to share his thoughts with us. Please, Ambassador.
I'm delighted to be with all of you here today at the launch ceremony of the Dialogue of Civilizations. I will sum up what India's vision, approach to the world is in just 2 words in the ancient Indian language called Sanskrit. The 2 words are Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which means in English that the world is one family. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, India has an optimistic view. We believe that there is no clash of civilizations which is about to take place in this world. We believe that there must be a dialogue of civilizations. There must be a dialogue among civilizations. And we believe that though human beings may look different, speak different languages, believe in different religions, there is a oneness of humanity which will win through. We are fully supportive of CGTN's efforts to have this dialogue of civilizations, and I wish you all the very best in this very successful and very good venture. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. We appreciate your time. And up next, let's welcome Ambassador Leonidas Rakinas, Greek ambassador to China, to share his vision with us. Please, Ambassador.
Dear Director Zhang, Your Excellency Ambassador of India, good friend Gautam Babavale, my friends from the Egyptian Embassy, thank you very much for organizing this event. May I welcome also our friends that came from Greece, from Egypt and from India to help us with this program. It's a wonderful initiative what you have started here in CGTN, and I should thank your channel for that. I think it's a very pertinent initiative too, given that there's a long talk and a lot of talk about politics, about economics, about different kinds of categories, intellectual and non-intellectual, but less talk or no talk about culture and civilization. I think it's very pertinent to go back to that, and given that this is our roots, this is our identity, and given that I think this is also the key to understand not how the world evolved in the past, but especially where the world is moving today. I would entirely agree with what my good friend Gautam said about the Indian philosophy, about humanity. We in Greece, we call the world, we have a word for the world which we call cosmos, and cosmos means jewel. We have a very aesthetic view of what surrounds us. It's not just there, it doesn't just exist, but it's beautiful, and it's a very pleasant and very good thing to be in. Second, I wanted to go back a little bit, like my ancestors always did. The word dialogue is Greek, as you see. The word dialogue comes from two words, the words dia or dia and the word logos. And logos is the rational human being. It's a rational human personality. So it's not just one human being here. Dialogos means the interaction and the communication between two rational human beings at least. So it means two or more. So it means human society. It means also human groups. It means that human beings are essentially social beings and political animals, as Aristotle put it. They are political animals. They cannot exist outside of a human group. They are happy to be in that human group in a society and to interact with each other. Dialogue contains all these elements. It contains the fact that through that we define ourselves. This is how we define ourselves. And also, it contains another element which I think is very important to remember, that civilizations are created through dialogue and coexist and co-develop through dialogue. There is no other way. The other way, my good friends, is the way of the First World War that a few days ago celebrated. On the 11th of November, we celebrated Armistice, which is the implosion of civilization. or the destruction of civilization. This is the other way. The only way to go about is dialogue. And the word civilization also, what does it mean? Where does it come from? It comes from another civilization, the Greco-Roman civilization, from the word kives or chives, which means, which comes from, it means the citizens and the city. So civilization comes from the city, it comes from the community of human beings. It is born in a community of human beings through dialogue. It is born through that, and it continues through that. As long as that doesn't exist, there's no civilization. So let's go back a little bit. I chose to go back to the roots and to the definitions, as my ancestor Aristotle would have done, to see what lies beyond and behind what you have very rightly put here. What does, and this is the essence, we should always go back and question ourselves about the meanings of these words. So what is the future? Where do we move from here? Because that's the question that you put before. We have seen what we have seen. Our civilization, the Greek civilization, is very well known about certain elements that we all see around us. As the Indian civilization, the Chinese civilization, and the Egyptian, they have transmitted to our civilization today very important elements. They are to be found with us, and they are to be found also in the past. They will be found there in the future. They will also exist. So civilizations, in a sense, they are not destroyed. They coexist and they somehow evolve, and they have done so always together with one another, and peacefully, more than at war. And they do this through a sort of dialogue. What I would like to say is that we have contributed rational thinking. We have contributed philosophy, the rational examination of the world, moving away from the theological and metaphysical explanation of nature, moving away from animism, moving away from different kinds of explanation of the world into the rational, philosophical, and scientific explanation of the world. This is with us still today. While we're moving towards the 21st century, this is together with us and will remain with us forever. Can we move away from rationality and from science? No. There is no other way. So, in a sense, what the Indian, the Egyptian, the Chinese civilizations have also contributed. They will never move away from us. They will be with us forever. The thing is, what do we do with them? And my answer to this, our Greek civilization is well known about other things. My answer to this is we have to cherish those things. We have to go back. We have to love them and cherish them. We have to go back and analyze them and draw wisdom from them for the future. We are not moving, we're not like a boat that moves out there in the ocean without anything with us. We have lots and lots of useful and good things with us while we're moving in an ocean of the future. What I wanted to say is, that's why I mentioned the First World War and armistice that we celebrated a few years. That was a dreadful, there are things like that. There are things like that in our history. There are things that are destructive, and they mean, let's say, the total disintegration of civilization. What happened in Europe with the so-called European Civil War, what happened, the First World War and the Second World War, is something from which we have to learn. This is why we have to go back and learn from that. So we have to move away from that. This should be a starting point for a new kind of thinking about civilization and about history. Where are we moving from now? We are moving in a totally different kind of direction. We are moving into the unknown, as always. History moves into the unknown. We never know what lies beyond. Our ancestors did not know, but in the old times, as old Egyptians, ancient Egyptians very well know, in Tutankhamun's grave, I said this in my interview before, there is a famous writing that says, I have known yesterday, I would know tomorrow. Why? Because at these times, history did not move as fast. It took centuries and millennia to move a pace forward. History did not move in the way that history moves now, like a fast-moving train, or like a satellite, or like a planet. Now history has been greatly accelerated. So where do we move from here? These are pertinent questions. Do we move together? Multilateralism is a very, very pertinent question that was put before. Do we go on our own? Do we go isolated? Do we play a solitary game? Or do we go together? And how do we go together if we don't dialogue with each other? Can we go it alone? Can we solve the global problems alone? Is that possible in the 21st century? It's not possible more than it was in the past. So today we have the information and communication technology revolution. We have globalization. We are moving into entirely new ground, but with a difference. This is not so entirely new. This is not so entirely new. It is, and we will always be accompanied by the great wisdom and the great achievements of all our cultures. And our cultures have been dialoguing with each other from the past. For example, we Greeks have been dialoguing with the Egyptians thousands of years before Christ. We have been in contact with them. We have been in contact with the Indians. For centuries and centuries, we have evolving together with each other in a similar way. We later came to contact Chinese who were too far away. But that happened also after the 5th century, 6th century AD. And before our civilization entered into China through, deities like Bacchus, through art, through different symbols. We were here without being here. So what should we get out of this? We should get out a very useful thing to remember is that cultures do not go away. They're like our skin. Cultures are organizations, and they form they are part of us. They are part of our bodies. They're like our skins. We will wear them forever. The thing is, how do we go about to learn from them? How are we going to be guided by them for the future? Because there are different ways to do that. So I put enough questions, I think. And to begin with, this was just meant to be greeting for all of you. I'm very thankful again to CGTN that allows us to make those questions and to put those questions. Actually, philosophy is about questioning, it's not about answering. Because everybody gives his own answer. And probably answers are not very relevant either. The most important thing is to ask questions, and especially to ask the right questions when it is most pertinent to do so. So thank you very much. I'll let you continue, and thank you very much for this opportunity given to us to say our opinion on these very, very important issues. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Very interesting question you have proposed in your speeches, and a fascinating explanation on the words dialogue and civilization in Greece. Very refreshing, love it. And finally, a warm welcome for His Excellency Hussein Abraham, Cultural Counselor of Egyptian Cultural and Educational Relations Office in China. His speech will be in Chinese. We'll have translation for you. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are sharing the dialogue of civilization. Egypt, for a long history, has already started the dialogue of the civilization. So we need to know what is the idea of Egyptian about the dialogue of civilization. The dialogue of civilization need a bridge. This bridge need languages. So let me deliver my speech in Chinese. 各位先生、女士们，下午好。
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
今天我们参加 CGTN 电视台安排的有关文明的对话，所以我安排我的 PPT 有关埃及。埃及 很早以前已经开始文明的对话，因为埃及有7000年的历史，有5000年的记载的历史，这个历史是漫长的，是包括法老王的时代，包括希腊的时代、罗马时代、土耳其奥斯曼时代，还有现在埃及的历史。通过这样的，我们猜到埃及是一个漫长的那个历史的一个国家。通过像这样的，我们原来跟希腊、罗马、跟奥斯曼的帝国这样的文明，我们对世界带来了新的一个信号，就是文明的对话。
So, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to attend in this launching ceremony of the Dialogue of Civilizations organized by CGTN. Actually, today I'd like to share with you some points about our history. So, with a history as long as 5,000 years on record, to be accurate, and we have been through quite a number of periods, including the Pharaoh rule, the Greek rule, and also the Roman rule, and also the rule of the Ottoman Empire. So after the rule of so many dynasties and empires, we actually have started dialogue with different civilizations in an early time. So we are trying to deliver such a new signal to the world that we are dialoguing with the civilizations.
我们看埃及的历史，这个5000年，它分法老王的时代、希腊时代、罗马时代。法老王的时代是埃及公元前3000年，它分为古王朝、中王朝和新王朝，大概的有33个法老王。你们知道法老王这个词是什么意思呢？是国王的，但是不是一般的国王，他是地位很高的，意味他是达到神仙的地位。所以埃及法老王的时代是占了埃及历史3000年的时代。后来呢，公元前320年是托勒密的时代，是希腊时代。这就是我们跟希腊，就是我们有综合的文明的时代。罗马时代是公元30年的，这是我们跟现在意大利的一个文明的合作。
The Pharaoh rule started as long as 3,000 years ago, and we had 33 pharaohs in total. Do you know what is the meaning of Pharaoh? It actually is the king of Egypt, which enjoys a very high status or supremacy in Egypt. And the Greek period started in 320 BC, known as the Ptolemy state. And later on, starting from 30 BC, we have the Roman rule.
你们现在看的是金字塔，是代表埃及文明古国，代表埃及古王朝的时代，离现在有4500年的历史。它给我们讲埃及文明的故事。
So you must all be familiar with the pyramids in Egypt, which enjoys a history of 4,500 years. It has become a name card of Egypt to tell you about our long history.
埃及历史是蛮长的。我刚才说法老王的时代有古王朝，也有中王朝。这是一个蛮有名的一个神庙，这个神庙是叫哈奇普特女王的神庙，这个是世界上最古老的一个女王。她已经开始文明的对话，她派了很多的团去索马里，还要去其他的国家，开始跟他们有文明的对话。
So the Pharaoh state has enjoyed a very long history. It was divided into two stages, the ancient period and the middle period. We had a famous Pharaoh who is a queen, the most famous queen and the earliest queen in Egypt, which sent delegations to the rest of the world.
这是埃及一个蛮有名的神庙，叫阿布辛贝神庙。阿布辛贝神庙是埃及历史上最有名的一个国王拉西斯二世建造的。为什么我带了这个图片呢？在拉西斯二世的时候，拉西斯二世把埃及变成埃及帝国，一直到伊拉克、叙利亚和非洲。这个人给我们建造了这么美丽的一个神庙。但是这个神庙原来因为尼罗河的泛滥，所以淹在水里面的。通过联合国、通过中国的支持和欧洲的国家的支持，我们把这个神庙从尼罗河的水里面搬到现在这个岛，这就是另外一种的文明对话的。
And on this slide, you can find the Temple of Ab-Simbel. It was built by the most famous king, Ramesses II in Egypt. However, due to the construction of the temple, there was a flood that threatened to destroy the temple and the Nile River. And we are very fortunately to receive the support and aid from China and the EU and also the United Nations to help us relocate this temple. So I believe this is also another form of different civilizations.
Ambassador in Greek talk about the cooperation and the dialogue between Egypt and Greece. This is Alexandria, 亚历山大城市 the very famous city Alexandria. 这就是另外一种文明对话，另外文明的合作。这是亚历山大在希腊时代，亚历山大大帝对埃及建造了最美丽的那个城市。但是如果我们看的这个古城堡，这个古城堡是代表土耳其的时代，是土耳其人建造的一个很美丽的一个军事的一个城堡，所以这是代表埃及、希腊、土耳其的一个美丽的城市，亚历山大，所有的希腊人都喜欢的城市。
So Alexander the Great built this very famous city in the capital of Alexandria, and you can find on this the last slide the famous castle built by actually the Turkish. This represents a very famous architecture embraced by not only the Egyptians but also the Greeks.
我们也有代表罗马时代，罗马帝国的时候有罗马的时代。如果我们看这个图案，这个表示埃及是世界上历史上最古老的一个热力图案。这块石雕也是神庙中唯一拉上尾灯的一个地方。
And this is a stone tablet which includes the inscriptions that Egypt is one of the oldest, and this is the oldest solar calendar pattern in the world. And this is a very famous cultural relic which is well protected in the temple.
这是一个难得的一个图片，是在埃及神庙里面。我们看的都是2000多年前的做手术用的武器，到现在我们用的武器，那叫法老王的时代，他们这么聪明的，这个时候他们才知道了什么叫做手术的一个武器的。还有这个女的为什么她坐在这个座位的？ 这是他们很早知道了，女人如果要生产的时候，这个是最好的方式，为了女生生产的时候。
What I have just shown you includes a picture showing the wooden facility and supporting performing the surgery 2,000 years ago, and also a woman sitting for delivering a baby.
因为文明都要合作。如果你们看这个建筑的艺术，发现是法老王的时代和希腊时代、托勒密的罗马时代，都是有新的建筑的艺术风格。所以你们看的图案跟法老王的时代不一样，但是代表不同的文明，代表不同的文化。
I believe culture needs cooperation, so you can find different architecture styles in different periods. For example, you can find different patterns in the architecture in the Pharaoh state, and also the Greek style as well as the Ptolemaic style.
埃及除了法老王的时代、希腊时代、罗马时代，也有伊斯兰教的时代。这是代表伊斯兰教的时代是阿里清真寺，这是世界上最美丽的一个清真寺，叫水花石清真寺。所以埃及的历史是蛮长的一个历史。
This picture shows one of the most famous mosques in the world, the Ali Mosque, in the Islamic style, in addition to the previous states. So you can see that Egypt really enjoys a profound and long history.
OK， 最后我想说，文明的对话需要语言，需要桥梁，需要在一带一路有很多民心相通。有人民的交流。
So I believe to strengthen the dialogue of different civilizations, we need to overcome the language barrier. We also need to create various platforms that serve as bridges, and also we need to facilitate the exchanges among our people under the Belt and Road Initiative.
非常感谢 CGTN 今天安排的这么美好的一个文明的对话。
So finally, I'd like to thank the host, CGTN, for your hospitality and a kind arrangement.
谢谢。
Thank you all.
Many thanks, Your Excellency. So now, what is the crown jewel of each of the 4 great civilizations? And can different civilizations converge? And what can we do better to respect cultural diversities? But we put these questions to scholars, officials, and leading industry leaders. And let's now hear their perspective on this.
We've got so many different cultures, different languages, different approaches to issues, yet we're all human beings, and we often get confronted by not understanding the language or the culture and certain practices. The only way to deal with that is to communicate.
Go back to understand where each one of us are coming from, what systems of principles and values motivate us, to better be able to address the differences that we see.
We have this one planet that we all share. All the people living on this globe are linked together by the common bonds of humanity, and therefore it is critical that to make the most for each individual on this planet, that all civilizations come together.
China is one of the leaders from this point of view, and therefore the 2 civilizations have to live together, have a big inheritance, 4,000 years of coexistence. Shall we live a better future, or shall we live in the past? Our answer is look forward.
I believe the dialogue on the civilization is a very important topic, because culture exchange and communication among the people in different continents, different countries, different community is so important to build a harmonious society and the peace and the stability in the world.
On this shrinking planet, men can no longer live as strangers. So we must get to know each other, and it's really wonderful to hear about the kinds of dialogues that are happening today. We have to live together and work together on solving the many problems that we face, and dialogue is a key way to do that.
The world needs dialogue of civilizations. Dialogue, civilization. These are very compatible words.
All right, now the big moments we've all been waiting for. Let me once again welcome Mr. Jiang Heping and our guests back to the front to officially launch the event for us. Ambassador Gautam Babawali, Ambassador Leonidas Rakhanis, and also His Excellency Hussein Ibrahim, please. So we have prepared 4 special seals for this very moment. Please have one of them in your hand and hold it with the dragon head facing toward yourself. We're going to have a close-up shot on this, so let me quickly explain to our viewers who are watching this online. The seal here is in the shape of what we call royal seal in China. And back in the times, emperors usually left their marks on documents with official seals like this. Yes, the dragon head facing toward yourself. So we're going to do this all together. When I count to 1, I'm going to ask all of you to press the stamp nice and heartily onto this piece of calligraphy which says Dialogue with Civilizations. All right? Ready? 3, 2, 1, go! Not on my mic. Okay. We're going to have a group photo. Let me welcome Her Excellency Nagla Nagib and Miss Liu Tong and the 4 anchors from 4 TV networks. Mr. Vishnudeep Sam from NDTV India, Mr. Theophanes Papathanasios, ETR Network Greece, and Mohammed Rahim from Nile TV Egypt, and Mr. Yang Ray from CGTN. Please, to the center, please. All right, let's have our photographer taking a group photo with all of us in. All right. We're gonna have once again Mr. Jiang say a few words to declare the event because our mic wasn't on. So hang on, let me have our staff to give a mic to Mr. Jiang to officially declare the event, please. Can we have a mic, please?
So I officially declare open of the Dialogue of Civilizations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much. You can return to your seats now. And Ambassador Babawali, I understand you have another important meeting to be. Thank you so much for being here. We won't hold you any longer. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. Next up, we're going to show you a short video made by the 4 anchors who will be on the big show. They're taping the show tomorrow. And then they picked one each landmark from their own home country and shared their views on civilizations. So let's now take a look at what the 4 anchors have brought to us from their home countries.
The birthplace of the greater Western civilization, Greece. From the ancient days, Greece and China were connected with the Silk Road. Time flies, all is changing, and the 2 old civilizations come even closer together with the Belt and Road Initiative. Let's find out the real values of our civilizations walking through the history routes.
Many thousands of years ago, Egypt spearheaded the shaping up of civilizations and helped define the path for human social development in the most sophisticated, organized, and enlightening way. Let's go now to China and meet up with another great civilization that also enlightened the world, along with the civilizations of Egypt, India, and Greece.
The Humayun's Tomb in Delhi, a World Heritage Spot, a marvel of Mughal architecture, part of India's civilization. In our program in Beijing, I'll be giving you the Indian standpoint on great civilizations working together, shared values, some differences, but the spirit of cooperation.
5,000 years of history and 4 decades of opening up are a long journey of rediscovery. The Great Wall behind me was historically meant to block foreign invasion, but today, 56 ethnic groups of the country have been united to share the dividends of the modernization process. What can be done to respect cultural diversity while seeking economic integration? Will Confucianism help develop a more inclusive world order? That's our dialogue with civilizations.
Many thanks. All right. Let me now welcome our panelists back to the stage. Let's warmly welcome the anchors from the 4 TV networks. Mr. Vishnudeep Assam from NDTV India, please. And Mr. Theophanes Mr. Theophanes Papathanasiou from ERT Network Greece, please. And Mr. Mohammed Rahim from Nile TV Egypt. Thank you, please. And last but not least, our very own Young Ray from CGTN. Please. Have a seat, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please. All right. So, we're talking about some of the oldest civilizations today to ever existed in the world. So this goes to all of you. If you were to pick one keyword or a few keywords to describe the core value of your culture, the most unique quality of your civilization, what would that be and why?
Right. I think the Egyptian civilization could be characterized by, it's hard to pick one word, but if I had to pick one, it would be tolerance. Celebration of life. I'll be greedy, if I may, and add a few other words. Family-based, women empowerment.
Those are
love.
some of the great words. Universal. Who doesn't love love, right? Mr. Young?
Very simple. 和而不同. We agree to disagree.
And Thanos?
Okay, if I wanted to put a lot of words, we're going to take us hours here. Mr. Ambassador mentioned dialogue, which is a Greek origin, as well as civilizations. I will add to that democracy, demokratia.
Yes.
Philosophy, philosophia, and many, many words in sciences, in art, like mathematics, mathematica, geometria, geometry, and hundreds of words in sciences.
Yeah, Greece, it is the birthplace of democracy, the concept of Senate. Love it. What about you, Vishnu?
Democracy. We are the world's largest democracy. The spirit of shouting at each other, talking at each other, agreeing with each other, and disagreeing with each other is essential to what we are in India.
Fascinating. Now, when we talk about civilizations, languages or words, they're the building blocks of civilizations, right? Remember the stamp that we designed for this program? We have it on the screen here. It has the word civilization in 4 different languages. Can you share with us how to say civilization in your own language, first of all, Mohammed?
All right, civilization in Arabic is al-hadara.
Al-hadara.
Al.
Al-hadara. All right, that's not hard at all. Hard at all. And Mr. Yang, we know it, right? 文明 in Chinese. What about how to say civilizations in Greek?
Civilizations is politismos. From a Greek, as Mr.
I
Ambassador
sense the
mentioned
word politics in
Poli,
it. Is
yeah,
that?
Poli, and it's a city, and the politismos. So it comes from Greek origin again, as Mr. Ambassador mentioned, from a Greek Romaic era.
Interesting. What about how to say it in Hindi?
So in Hindi, it's Sabhyata. Of course, we've got hundreds of languages in India, and that word would sound very different in different languages, but Hindi is our national language. Sabhyata is how you pronounce it.
And what about your names? I guess I understand Vishnu is something related to a god in Hinduism, am I right? Do they carry
That's right.
different meaning?
I'm certainly not a god myself, but yes, Vishnu is the name of one of the primary Hindu gods. Vishnu is the preserver in the trinity of gods in our country.
And Thanos is also related to
Theophanes,
Greek mythology.
Now, give me the opportunity to say Theophanes comes from an origin that represents God, Theo, vision, light, Theophanes, and vision and light together.
What about you, Muhammad?
Muhammad is the name of the prophet of Islam. Yes, the founder of Islam. Okay. And the meaning of the name is that he is the one to be thanked. We thank God for his presence because, again, Muhammad has a lot of names, including Mustafa, which is the chosen one, and also he was nicknamed the truthful one or the honest one, even becoming a prophet. So in summary, Muhammad is the one to be thanked, and he's the founder of Islam.
Fascinating. And Mr. Young, I guess your first name carries the meaning of being sharp, wisdom. Am I right?
Yeah, you said it. Not very old. You said it all.
Yes, pretty sharp.
Yeah.
I
Now,
judge real people with tough questions.
Now, as ancient civilizations that have all survived to the present, I want to put this question to all of you. What kind of commonalities do you see that these cultures share? Let me start with you.
A lot. I think we have more in common than we don't. And like His Excellency, the Greek ambassador and the Indian ambassador mentioned, I mean, we are all one family. I mean, we all belong to humanity. I think when I say that tolerance is the name of the game in Egypt, I think it's the same case when it comes to the other great civilizations. Coexistence. So our differences might be again in the color, in the way we look, and then the language we speak, where we need bridges, like His Excellency the Counselor of Egypt said. But I think we have much more in common than we don't, and I think there is a lot to build upon. And here is one step.
Yeah, one step closer.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think of this? Do you want to add on this, Vishnu? Do you agree with what's been said here?
I do entirely agree. We live in a common global space, a common global economy, a common global environment, common religions, and in the context of this program, a common language, which happens to here be English, but it just represents how we are very similar in many ways. It's a question of maintaining this diversity to ensure that we can work together in so many levels.
Yeah. And do you feel that countries rich in history behave differently with, say, younger countries, Thanos?
Okay, but I want to mention that what you asked.
Sure.
Because all the ambassadors here and everybody here is mentioning the real values of our fourth ancient civilization, which is unity, diversity, common sense, and dialogue. I think we are very far. Our humanity, today's world, is very far from this. So we don't. The question is how we take advantage and rediscover our spiritual values, our moral values, and have them help us in a way to find our way again.
Now, speaking about, the highlights of your culture respectively, I gotta say, when we say, the key figures in Egypt, a lot of figures will come into mind, but one of the most important or famous pharaohs that Chinese people know about is Cleopatra, probably, Aiji and Ho. We also have a female ruler in China too, Empress Wu, who has beaten all the odds to rise on the top in a male-dominated world. And Cleopatra was remembered as a great beauty, a great intellectual that would use her charm to influence some of the most powerful men in the Western world. There are a lot of movies based on Cleopatra, and those are huge hits in China too. So that's just one small example of how your culture is being seen here through Chinese eyes. But what do you think? If you were to say, what kind of qualities that your culture bring to the world that other cultures, say Mesopotamia or Indus Valley or China, do not?
I'm not sure that any great civilization has brought something to the world that others haven't. Even if it was a minimal achievement compared to the other ones. But let me tell you, you mentioned Cleopatra. Of course, Cleopatra ruled during the Roman rule, and before that there was Hatshepsut, and there was also, after that, Shajarat al-Durr. So we had, like in the Roman era, in the Pharaonic era, in the Islamic era, we had women rulers, when I say women empowerment. So, and the family in Egypt, the woman is the leader. By the way, until now, I mean, this is how the Egyptian society has been built for thousands of years. Nefertiti, the most famous, I guess, female face in the world, is an Egyptian. Of course, we have the pyramids, we have the mummification, we have that great advancement in engineering, but so did the Chinese, so did the Greeks, so did the Indians. It's maybe just the pyramids and the mummification. But even if we talk about mummification, nobody, of course, has ever done it other than the Egyptians. But it's the idea of that there is a life after life, that we have to prepare for it, that we take our treasures, the rulers say, or the pharaohs take our treasures with them and bury them in preparation for the next life. I guess this idea is present again in all other great civilizations.
Yeah. And also Greece, ancient Greece is a legendary civilization. Its art, its philosophy, its heroes, and the fact that it gave rise to democracy, as I mentioned before. These are just some of its achievements. But what do you think are the most important legacy that ancient Greece have left to the modern world, Fanis?
I would say two things. Democracy, demokratia, for our ancient ancestors, and philosophy. A lot of Greek philosophers give us show us the way to explore knowledge. So Aristotle shows how to approach knowledge in a holistic view, to see cosmos in a holistic view. So, and we have a lot of ancestors that show us and give us the light first in the sciences. So I would say democracy, sciences, and philosophy.
And China and India are, of course, they're gaining momentum. They're seen as rising emerging markets in the world economic arena. So, Mr. Yang, how do you think, first of all, the role of China, and then I'm going to ask for Vishnu's opinion on this, the role of India in the ever-changing international order? First, Mr. Yang.
Let me add one more point to what my Greek friend says on the legacy from the Greek civilization, I think, Olympic spirit. The 5 rings, arm in arm, and we were honored to host the Beijing Olympics back in 2008. Despite the devastating earthquake that happened the same year, we rose on the ruins of the devastation that wreaked havoc with several counties in Sichuan province, and that showcased the spirit of resilience of China. And I think the spirit of the Olympic torch somehow conveyed this message that is shared by mankind for centuries. So I think this is one of the great legacies that the Greeks passed down to the rest of the world. Now back to the role China plays in shaping international order. I don't think China has the ambition, although our great leader, President Xi Jinping, does have the vision to build Belt and Road Initiative, which aims to be more inclusive, based on something that first appeared back in 1648. A number of agreements called Westphalian documents after 30 years war in Europe. So we put an end to the emperor's power, and we pay more respect to the importance of sovereignty and equality in leveling the playing field. So starting from 1648, we're going to have we start to have the what is called a world order and the foundation for such to be built. And Dr. Henry Kissinger wrote a book about the world order. The the most often quoted word in his book about the world order is Westphalian Agreement. So I think China, as a huge beneficiary of the process of globalization and the current world order, will have no reasons whatsoever to change the existing world order. But if you look at the quiet shift of affluence and influence from the West to the East and the rise of the Indo-Pacific region, with China being in the forefront economically, and if you look at the urgency of reforming the United Nations, starting from perhaps the special drawing rights of IMF, giving China and other emerging markets more voting powers, and you have to look at the issue of leveling the playing field or national treatment. And we are grateful for being admitted to the WTO after marathon negotiations with the United States. So in short, we do have a vision to facilitate the process of globalization, despite the disrupting forces of unilateralism, protectionism, and nationalism in the age of unpredictability and volatility under the presidency of Donald Trump. Thank you so much.
I'm going to have to get your reaction on this, the concept of Indo-Pacific, the rise of this region. What do you think? Your thoughts on this?
I think India's basis of existing in the international order is a keen appreciation of what multilateralism is all about. And the fact that as we seek to work together economically, as we seek to work together diplomatically, we have to accept that there are differences in certain areas. And it's these differences which can actually add to our collective existence in the international space. I think the big concern among so many, not just in India, but around the world, is the fear of a new imperialism replacing the old imperialism. And therefore, when we talk about economic initiatives, which might actually be very strong from an economic standpoint, for example, the Belt and Road Initiative, we need to ensure that the sovereignty of different nations, and Yang Rui touched upon that point, is not affected in the process. And in this, there are different views. But I do believe that the vision that he spoke about and what you also mentioned of the rise of the Indo-Pacific goes without any doubt. China is the most prominent economic power in the world today. And India is fast catching up, but we've got some way to go. And I think the potential of an India and a China working together economically in the future is something which could transform certainly Asia, if not the rest of the world.
Based on an agreement that Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping agreed upon in Wuhan.
Yes,
absolutely. A couple of months
I was there.
Ahead of the Qingdao SCO summit, I think something tremendous was delivered.
In fact, if I may just add to that, I was in Wuhan for that. Yang Rui and I did a program a year plus back, where I think the spirit was very different from what we've seen transform over the last few months. And I think the importance of strong leadership is so very important. He's spoken about this. Xi Jinping's leadership is something which has been respected around the world. It's made an enormous mark as far as a very testy equation between our two great civilizations. And the fact that you had two leaders willing to actually go that extra mile in being the final arbiters of where India and China would actually be in the world, and then to say that there needs to be de-escalation of tensions at so many levels, is an indicator of how strong leadership can actually make a difference. The question is, will that last the course? That's the big issue.
Mohammed, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it will. I think it will last the course. I mean, China and India together, I think they represent like 1/3 of the world's population, if I'm not mistaken. And I just wanted to say that I really, and this is on the personal level, I really admire the success that the Chinese economy is making. I mean, it's huge. I mean, the whole world. It's not just Egyptians. The whole world. I mean, and look at, you mentioned Trump. So I mean, the whole world is really looking at this huge economic power, and we don't even know if they are already #1. They might be, or at least on the path. So I think this cooperation will lead to something big and will change the world order, or at least hopefully. I wanted also to say that I admire Indian democracy, and and when you mentioned the Olympics, I must say this, again on a personal note, because I've been lucky enough to be in the Paralympics, in the Sydney 2000 Paralympic Games. I was not lucky enough to be in the Beijing 2008 Olympics or Paralympics. But when I was in Sydney, I mean, the torch, I mean, it's different. It's bigger than life, really. It is bigger than life, especially the Paralympics. I was really lucky enough to be there, and the spirit, the torch, those people with special abilities achieving. And the Egyptians especially were good, especially in weightlifting and other sports. So it made it that bigger. But the Olympic Games, for me at least, on the personal level, is the best thing that is the thing I enjoy most. And I hope to play there, but when I watch anyway. So I want
one more point.
Thank you. To
Olympic Games. I went to Athens to interview the former Prime Minister Karamanlis, and talked about the Olympics and the legacy as such. And he said, "Young Ray, please don't learn from the Americans in turning this game into a commercial one. Our two countries share not only a long history, but a common understanding about the importance of Olympic spirit. You turn each of the stones around in the streets of Athens or any other major streets of Greece, you find a history of 5,000 years below the stone. The same is true with China. So look at the history, look at the civilization and legacies of such. Don't get commercialized." That's what he said to me, and I was so impressed. I could still remember what he said in the exclusive interview.
Okay, thank you very much, and everybody. And I don't know how I did make a mistake and not mention Olympic Games as a former athlete and an admirer of the Olympic Games. Thank you very much, everybody. But I welcome here the dialogue that you have with Vishnu, and to see that dialogue and civilization and our initiative here brings countries together to talk, even though there are differences, through dialogue. We can solve issues. And Greece believes in dialogue. We believe in the national law of order. The Greek foreign policy is based on actually is one of our values that the Greek foreign policy is based. So the Greek foreign policy and Greece in general, we are in the European Union, which believes in unity and cooperation in the United Nations. And of course, we are against unilateralism, against nationalism, against protectionism.
Those are all great perspectives. Now, one last question before we move on to the Q&A session. There are also some critical voices, though. People wonder why, how come those great ancient civilizations, they're not on the top these days, the modern world, in the 21st century? How come they become home to some of the most impoverished communities in the world? Why have they become sometimes, in some way, the less comparatively advanced countries? They say, well, glory leads to looking inward, becoming soft, stop taking in new ideas. You live in the past glories. What are your thoughts after hearing this? What's your reaction? Do you agree with that? Or, you feel like there's something that we should be mindful in guiding the societies forward?
I think it's just the normal path of history. I mean, Britain could tell itself, I'm no longer the empire that doesn't have that always has the sun, or doesn't have the sun set down, or the French are not as strong as they used to be before. Americans 200 years ago, they were not even there. So I mean, it's just history, and it goes up and down, I think. But we have something from the past to build upon. I mean, history doesn't die, and the heritage that we have doesn't go away. We still have it. At one time, yes, of course, Egypt was a leader when it came to engineering, when it came to astronomy, when it came to medicine, when it came to everything, when it came to organizing a central government, when it came to empowering women. Yes, of course, I guess Egyptians would like to see Egypt in a higher place, in the place that they believe it belongs. I guess the same would go for the other great civilizations, there is this aspiration that we want to be at the top again. So, but this is history, and we have something to build upon, and we have our heritage, and we have the people, and who knows? I mean, it's the cycle of history.
Have something to build upon. Yeah. Any ideas? All right, shall we move to the Q&A sessions?
Let me add to that.
Yeah, sure.
If we don't know, we have to know, we have to get the knowledge of our past in order to reflect in our today's and to lead us to the future. So what we do here through dialogue is an asset that can help us to rediscover our values, and create a platform of how these values, spiritual values, moral values, can help us in solving or approaching issues or our future or our today's crisis.
Let me add a few more points about why for centuries first of all, I interviewed Governor Chris Patton, the last governor of Hong Kong, twice, and perhaps I'm the only Chinese journalist who was able to interview this controversial politician of Hong Kong twice. He said, for past 20 centuries, China was the strongest for 18. Now, why China had been underdeveloped, and we are still underdeveloped, by the way, until 40 years ago when late senior leader Deng Xiaoping decided to open our country up and started the process of modernization. There are several sentences we need to keep in mind. And these sentences characterize the national ethos of the Chinese people, ordinary folks. 安贫乐道，不患寡，为患不均。安贫乐道, it means we are very happy with the religious teachings, basic conscience of cultural refinement. We are not hungry for material richness. 不患寡，为患不均 is actually a reflection of egalitarianism. Egalitarianism is quite different from the spirit of capitalism, such as the one of Wall Street. The greed of capitalism does showcase the basic human desire to get rich and to be different one from another. It takes hours to clarify what actually means through what we call 不患寡，为患不均. The slogans that were raised by Chen Sheng Wu Guang ahead of the Qing dynasty, before the BC 221 BC, said, 王侯将相宁有种乎? Well, who can do the translation? It means we dislike the idea of a family legacy, of the family dynasty. We call for equality and egalitarianism. So this kind of notions have prevented our nations and our people from, turning to industrialization and emancipation of the productive forces until the late 1970s. So I think China was changed profoundly by Deng Xiaoping, who said, 贫穷不是社会主义. Poverty is not the hallmark of socialism.
Yeah, not all glories led to downfall and decadence, although some countries did, lose their capacity, their drive for hard work and invention over time.
Which are these countries that you're referring to, out of curiosity?
Which part of the sentence? The first part of the sentence, or,
No, I think the reason I ask this is because I think it's also important to avoid stereotypes and falling into the trap of stereotypes. For example, India is an immensely poor country at one level. On the other level, we are growing at an 8% GDP growth rate as well on certain good years, which would make it among the fastest growing in the world. We have incredible problems, for example, with our environment and our air pollution. On the other hand, we've got one of the smartest and one of the finest space programs in the world. It's happening at a cost. On the one hand, we've got incredible problems of communal violence, but on the other hand, we've got and incredibly lively democracy which exists at the same time. So I think one needs to understand that when it comes to poverty and a lack of development, it often comes in democracies, and in fact most countries of the world, with the opposite as well. And India is one example of extremities, right? You've got the very rich, you've got the very poor. You've got great achievement and you've got underachievement as well. But I think as we look at nations progressing, it needs to be looked at in a holistic manner, not just by looking or considering or calling individual nations insular or impoverished, because that feeds a certain stereotype which would perhaps not be reflective of the entire reality. That's my view.
Interesting to hear different perspectives. Thank you, gentlemen. We're going to move to the Q&A sessions. So I'm going to open the floor for questions. If you have questions to raise, please identify yourself, your name, and your organizations, please. Let me start with the gentleman here. Thank you.
Can I point out that you made a mistake at the start of our conversation, our gentleman from India. You said that India is the largest democracy in the world. No, that's wrong. China.
I said it's one of the largest. On a good year, it's touched 8%, is what I said.
Because China's population is bigger than India. So you are the second biggest democracy in the world. Okay. Now, my questions. How would you understand Chinese President Xi Jinping's idea of building the so-called community of shared future for the mankind? And what kind of role of civilization can play in this great objective?
Right.
And this question is only for the three of you, except Yang Rui, okay? Because now, so, my second question is for all four of you, okay? Since Samuel Huntington published his book, Clash of Civilization, quite a few years ago, and what do you think of the danger of clash of civilization? It's getting less and less likely, or it is getting more and more likely for clash of civilization?
I think as far as, I'll just take on the first part of your question because you asked several, and frankly I've forgotten a few of them. But the first part of your question on the largest democracy, I don't believe that China's vision of democracy is the same as India's vision of democracy. And I think the manner or the style of leadership and what you have achieved, which is absolutely remarkable, follows a different path. But I don't think the word democracy applies in quite the sense that we do in terms of our parliamentary democracy, which has existed for several decades. Obviously, this is no reflection on the success of China's government at all.
What about the part on Xi's thoughts on shared future and also...
I agree entirely. I believe a shared future in the context of Asia, a shared India and China and Japan overcoming regional differences, focusing on trade, their common heritage, overcoming differences of boundaries, and working together towards common objectives. Just one of the issues which I was discussing with one of your colleagues in CGTN earlier today is, it is remarkable to me as an Indian to see the successful fight that China has waged against air pollution. I come from a city where air pollution a few days back in Delhi, I live in a city, had touched a PM 2.5 mark of more than 1,500, which is ridiculous. And yet we see China having done so much. So if we are to work together, it's in appreciating and understanding how we can actually come together and work together. So when we talk about differences, it also needs to be looked at in terms of opportunities which may arise. This is one small example of that opportunity.
What about the likelihood of clashes of different civilizations and the danger of it, perhaps? Anyone? Mohammed? Thanos? Mohammed?
I'm afraid it could happen. I really don't believe in it. I never believed in it when Samuel Huntington wrote about it. But the way the world is progressing now, nationalism, I think the word nationalism was mentioned here. Yeah, there is nationalism, even in the US, and this is what the US president said. he's a nationalist, and even remember the French president Macron said, no, patriotism is I think he said patriotism is the opposite of nationalism, if I'm not mistaken. So if between brackets, that would be the world's what? Third largest democracy. I can't get it. The US, I mean. If it has a president that talks about nationalism and wants to revive the nationalism that led to WW1 and WW2, I don't know. That's from one side. The other side, there's a problem, of course, in the region where we live, the Middle East. Unfortunately, some outsiders are playing on the sectarian game. The sectarian game. Even between people who are supposedly from the same religion. Supposedly. But you have, like, Muslims, like you have Sunnis and Shiites, for instance. So they play on this game. And they put the Sunni world, they want to see the Sunni world clash with Iran, for instance. That's a big problem. That's a huge problem. I don't know. Yes, we are clashing. Unfortunately, the clashes are there. Even within, look at what's happening in Yemen, for instance. So there are clashes sometimes within the same culture, within the same civilization. So yes, I'm fearful that we are heading in the wrong direction. But I guess this is why there is an urgency for a dialogue of civilizations. Let's talk. And we need to talk not just with each other, but even with the guys out there in the West. We need to talk with them. We need to talk with everybody, I think.
With regard to clashes of civilization, I need to go back to what happened in 1979, when, on the one hand, the bilateral relationship was normalized between the United States and China. But the same year, the Islamic Revolution took place in Tehran, with the 52 American diplomats being held hostage for over 400 days. And the secular culture arising from industrialization in the Persian state of Iran was usurped, was replaced by Islamic extremism in the Persian state. And hence, years and years of economic blockade and economic sanctions against Tehran, even if Obama reached the Iran nuclear deal, but it was brushed aside by President Trump. Now, having said this, in 2001, in the immediate aftermath of 9/11, President Bush had a slip of tongue when he was giving a public speech. He used the word crusade. Everyone understands the implications of crusade. And then the spokesperson of the White House immediately stood out and corrected his slip of tongue and said, that's a reckless wording. But my understanding about the two wars that the United States waged against, first of all, Afghanistan and Iraq, actually came from the doctrine of neoconservatism. Their representatives include Dick Cheney and Rumsfeld. These guys said, we can no longer buy democracy. We must transplant democracy from the West to the Middle East through the use of force. So this kind of confrontations took so many lives. We see return of body bags endlessly from Afghanistan and from Iraq, and thousands of Muslims were left homeless, internally and externally. And therefore, the asylum-seeking crisis in continental Europe and terrorist attacks as a result. So such clashes of civilizations, I'm afraid, could be a haunting specter. And yet, when China calls for dialogue instead of confrontation, the other guy in Washington says, America first. So this is very dangerous. Is it a clash of civilization? You need to examine this issue in the broad context of what happened in the wake of 9/11, period.
Let me take something on democracy. And I agree with what Vishnu said about democracy. There are, each country, its leader believes in democracy in a different way, and even the Greek style of democracy in the ancient Greece is very different from the ideal democracy today. They're not perfect democracies, but let's say in China, in Greece, in the United States, the leaders and the systems understand democracy in a different way, but the sense of in human rights and freedom of the speech, it's the same sense like it was in the past, in the ancient Greece, where democracy was orientated and were born. So we have to rediscover, we have to understand the values of our democracy back then and to see how we can improve democracy today. Also, I don't believe in the clash of civilizations today. I don't think that will happen. Even democracies in the United States, let's say the governments after this crisis in the Middle East understood the mistakes, understood that it was not something that will be beneficial from both sides. So we have different views from back then. We had even different views in the United States, inside the United States. And President Obama, after President Bush, had different views about this kind of issues.
We have opinions saying that it's likely to happen, and we also have opinions saying, well, it won't happen. I hope that satisfies your answer. I see our friends, Mr. Harvey Zoden, sitting in there. Let's get an American perspective on this from a Western observer's perspective. What kind of questions are you interested in asking?
First of all, to say that CGTN is to be congratulated for holding this dialogue and using media for good. So many of us thought that technology would be a flowering of thoughtfulness and communication between civilizations, but if my country is any example, it hasn't been. So my question for all the panel is, you're all media mavens. How can we use technology, television, internet, and so on, to conduct a dialogue of civilizations as opposed to in my country where the media has been weaponized? Thanks very much.
Vishnu, you want to go for that?
Well, the media in my country has been weaponized as well because, and it's a tragedy that we face, where we face this very deliberate effort among some networks, very prominent, to toe a certain line, the government line, which isn't truly democratic, which isn't truly liberal in the sense of what journalism should actually be all about, and we find these extreme views clashing entirely with the rest of us, and they're just a handful of us who believe in speaking our minds the way it should be, and we find this also in the electronic media, by which I mean the internet and websites as well. So I think this is a struggle and this is a clash which we face in other countries as well. But in terms of actually reaching out to other nations on a platform like this, I think it's a fantastic idea. And I compliment CGTN for the efforts that you have made in reaching out across the world, setting up a bureau in Nigeria, is it, where you've done so much work? Or in Nairobi, I beg your pardon, in Kenya, where you've done so much work. I think that is what we really need to be. There needs to be an alternative to a CNN or a Fox News. And at one level, Al Jazeera was that. And I think it's welcome that you see CGTN come in as an alternative, not necessarily as a challenger, but an alternative viewpoint. I think that's very welcome.
All right, I've been told we're running out of time here, so that's all the time we have. I'm sorry, we don't have time for more questions, but thank you very much for all being here. I hope that with our interactions here today, you can get a sense of what our special program, Dialogue of Civilizations, is all about and get interested in watching the program. The program, again, is going to be aired on November 28th, 7:30 p.m. Beijing time. And thank you again for all being here. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
This is CGTN. You're watching CGTN. I'm Jeff Moody, live in Beijing.
You're watching CGTN.
Coming to you from Washington, D.C.
You're watching CGTN.
Coming to you from Nairobi.
I'm members of business of
Mic check.
Market.
Okay.
What can you tell us about events happening?
Just a reminder, we have provided refreshment.
Second time
back over to Beijing.
To go after
Get all about the dance. Take a look at what we have.
This is CGTN. CGTN. See the difference. China Global Television Network. From broadcast centers in Beijing, Washington, and Nairobi. A unique global perspective. 6 channels.